The ventilation tunnel groaned above Kyle Arden's head like a dying beast. Sparks burst from the cracked energy conduit beside him, briefly lighting the narrow shaft in violent blue flashes. Somewhere deeper inside the metal maze, an alarm continued screaming every 4 seconds with enough persistence to make Kale consider throwing himself into space voluntarily. I swear this station hates me personally, he muttered, tightening a magnetic bolt with his plasma wrench. The ancient mining colony of Vera 9 orbited a dim red star at the forgotten edge of the galaxy. Most maps no longer bothered including it. Cargo pilots called it scrap orbit, pirates called it useless. Tax collectors called it temporarily unavailable, which was usually government language for abandoned. Kyle preferred not to call it anything. Another burst of sparks exploded directly into his face. Perfect, he sighed. Excellent. Maybe blind me too. Really complete the evening. Below the tunnel, hundreds of workers moved through the station's market district beneath holographic signs and steam clouds leaking from rusted pipes. Alien merchants shouted over one another in 6 different languages while battered cargo drones flew overhead carrying crates of reactor fuel and synthetic food packs. A small repair drone floated beside Kyle, projecting a blinking warning symbol. Structural instability detected, the machine announced cheerfully. You sound way too happy about that. Probability of tunnel collapse has risen to 17%. Still too cheerful. The drone paused. My apologies. Probability of painful death has risen to 17%. Much better. Kyle wiped grease across his sleeve and crawled deeper into the shaft. The station's main oxygen processors had failed again, which meant the Colony Council had exactly 2 choices: hire expensive engineers from the core worlds or threaten Kyle until he fixed it for almost no money. Naturally, they chose the second option. He reached the damaged conduit and opened the panel carefully. The inside glowed with unstable crimson energy. That was unusual. Oxygen systems weren't supposed to glow like angry suns. That seems medically concerning, Kale whispered. Before he could touch anything, the entire station suddenly shook. Hard. The tunnel rattled violently. Kai slammed face first into a pipe while the repair drone bounced into the ceiling. Warning, the drone said. Something enormous has entered local orbit. Please don't say pirates. Unknown. That somehow feels worse. A deep mechanical voice suddenly echoed through the colony speakers. Attention citizens of Vera 9. By decree of the Galactic Senate, prepare immediately for royal arrival. Kyle froze. The drone froze. Even the ventilation fan seemed confused. Then Kyle laughed. No, absolutely not. Royal ships don't come here. We literally have fungus growing inside the customs office. Outside the tunnel, people began shouting in panic. Market stalls closed instantly. Smugglers disappeared into alleys with impressive speed. Somewhere nearby, a man yelled, "Hide the illegal robots!" Kyle carefully peeked through a maintenance grate toward the station's central docking chamber, and immediately regretted it. Massive silver ships hovered outside the station like floating cities, their surfaces glowing with lines of blue energy. Smaller escort fighters circled them in perfect formation. At the center drifted a colossal royal cruiser covered in shimmering crystal towers that reflected the red light of Vera, Nine's dying sun. The Austravian Royal Fleet. Kyle nearly dropped his wrench. Oh, that is catastrophically bad. The drone tilted slightly. Do you owe the Queen money? No. Did you commit treason? Not intentionally. That pause was alarming. Sirens erupted across the station as armored royal guards flooded the docking levels. Workers scrambled in every direction while security drones scanned crowds from above. Kyle slowly backed away from the grate. Nope. Whatever this is, I'm avoiding it completely. The moment he turned around, the oxygen conduit behind him exploded. A wave of pressure launched him through the maintenance shaft like a projectile. Kyle screamed the entire way down. 5 seconds later, he crashed directly through a ceremonial glass ceiling into the center of the station's grand arrival hall. Silence consumed the chamber. Hundreds of royal soldiers stared at him. Alien diplomats stared at him. Towering senators covered in gold armor stared at him. And standing beneath floating rings of celestial light, surrounded by silver banners and glowing crystal pillars, stood Queen Elira herself. Kyle lay motionless on the polished floor, smoke rising from his jacket. His half-eaten noodles slowly slid out of his pocket. I can explain, he said weakly. No one moved. The silence inside the arrival hall became so complete that Kyle could hear the faint dripping sound of noodle broth sliding across the polished floor. One of the royal guards slowly raised his energy spear. Another guard whispered, Is that food? I think it's moving, someone answered nervously. Kyle lifted his head an inch. Technically, that means it's still fresh. The nearest senator looked deeply offended by his existence. The enormous alien's armored jaw twitched beneath glowing battle markings. This is the sacred celestial hall, the senator growled. Why is there a mechanic falling from the ceiling? Kyle pointed weakly upward. Gravity? The guard beside the queen failed to hide a laugh, and immediately pretended to cough instead. At the center of the chamber, Queen Elira remained perfectly still. The floating crystal strands in her pale silver hair moved gently around her face like drifting light underwater. Beneath the smooth blue glow of her skin, countless tiny constellation-like patterns shimmered slowly across her arms and throat. Her eyes held no pupils at all, only luminous rings of white and violet light turning softly inside one another. Kyle immediately looked away. Not because she frightened him, because every survival instinct in his body screamed that people this important usually cause disasters. The queen stepped forward. The crystal floor beneath her feet illuminated with each movement. Two royal guards instantly blocked her path. Your Majesty, one warned carefully, the human may be dangerous. Kyle looked insulted. I'm barely functional. The queen ignored the guards completely. She stopped directly in front of him. For a long moment, she simply stared. The glowing rings inside her eyes shifted rapidly. Kyle suddenly became very aware that his jacket was smoking. Hello. Something strange happened then. The floating crystal pillars surrounding the hall flickered violently. A low vibration spread through the chamber. Every holographic display nearby began distorting. The queen's glowing markings brightened beneath her skin. Several senators stepped backward immediately. One of the palace scientists activated a scanning device and nearly dropped it in shock. Impossible, the scientist whispered. Kyle blinked. What's impossible? Nobody answered him. The queen slowly lowered herself until she stood eye level with him. You survived direct contact with unstable astral energy, she said softly. Kyle frowned. The exploding pipe? The scientist looked horrified. You touched it with your bare hands? I've had worse Tuesdays. The scanner began shrieking loudly. Warning symbols flashed across its surface. Unknown genetic signature detected. The chamber erupted into chaos. Guards raised weapons instantly. Senators began shouting over one another. One armored diplomat actually pointed at Kale and yelled, I knew the humans were hiding something. Kyle looked around in panic. I genuinely have no idea what's happening. The scanner shrieked again. Ancient solar markers detected. Every voice inside the hall stopped at once. Even the queen froze. Kyle stared blankly. That sounds bad. One elderly senator looked pale beneath his golden armor. The Solari are extinct. Another whispered. Their bloodlines were erased before the First Empire. Kyle slowly stood up. Well, that's comforting because I definitely don't know what any of those words mean. Suddenly, the station shook again. Harder this time. Emergency alarms burst alive across the colony. A mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Warning. Unidentified vessels approaching outer orbit. One royal officer activated a holographic display. 3 black warships emerged on the projection. Their hulls were covered in crimson symbols that moved like liquid fire. The room instantly darkened with tension. A senator whispered the name like a curse. The Varket Dominion. Kyle looked at the screen. Those look aggressively evil. You should be silent, snapped one guard. I'm trying, Kyle answered. But every 30 seconds something worse happens. The queen finally turned away from him, toward the hologram. For the first time, her calm expression cracked slightly. The Dominion should not know we are here. A royal commander approached quickly. Our communication arrays were jammed before arrival. Another violent tremor shook the station. Outside the giant viewing windows, distant flashes of light erupted across space. The Varked ships had opened fire. People screamed throughout the colony. Market towers exploded in the distance. Kyle instinctively grabbed the nearest rail as the station trembled violently again. Well, he muttered, this feels like a fantastic moment to leave. He took exactly one step before four royal guards immediately aimed weapons at his face. Kyle sighed heavily. Of course. The queen suddenly looked back toward him. The glowing patterns beneath her skin intensified again. For one strange moment, the lights inside the chamber dimmed around her as though the room itself reacted to her emotions. Then she spoke the sentence that shattered whatever sanity remained in the hall. Bring the human with us. Every senator erupted simultaneously. Your Majesty, that is forbidden. You cannot mean. Kyle pointed at himself. Oh no, absolutely not, I'm very busy. The queen ignored everyone. Outside the station, another explosion lit the darkness of space. And somewhere deep beyond the stars, hidden far past the black hole systems, something ancient quietly awakened. The royal evacuation shuttle tore through the burning docking lanes while warning sirens screamed across Vera 9. Kyle sat strapped into a military crash seat with three armed guards staring at him like he might suddenly explode. This feels excessive, he said. One guard tightened his grip on the pulse rifle. The last scanner reading caused a diplomatic incident. I didn't do that intentionally. That does not comfort us. The shuttle lurched violently as another explosion rocked the station outside. Through the narrow side window, Kai saw entire cargo platforms collapsing into space while panicked transport ships scattered in every direction. At the front of the shuttle, Queen Elira stood calmly beside the pilots. Calmly, somehow, even while enemy warships bombarded the colony. Even while alarms flashed crimson across every console. The glowing markings beneath her silver-blue skin shifted continuously like moving galaxies. Kyle noticed the strange patterns became brighter whenever nearby explosions shook the shuttle. He leaned toward the nearest guard slightly. Does she always glow like that? The guard looked offended. You speak of the Celestial Queen. Right, sorry. Does the Celestial Queen always glow like an angry flashlight? The guard opened his mouth to respond. Then the shuttle suddenly dropped 20 meters. Everyone slammed sideways. Kyle smacked face first into the seat ahead of him. I regret everything. The pilot shouted from the cockpit. Dominion fighters behind us. A holographic display burst alive above the cabin. Three black enemy interceptors were closing rapidly through the debris field surrounding the station. Their hulls looked wrong. Not damaged. Wrong. Like shadows shaped into metal. Even Kyle felt uncomfortable looking at them. One of the guards activated a turret control. Prepare for impact. Kyle raised a hand carefully. Tiny question. Why are evil empires always obsessed with dramatic ship design? Why not friendly colors? Maybe a soft blue? Nobody answered him, because the shuttle immediately spiraled sideways to avoid incoming plasma fire. The entire cabin shook violently. A crate flew loose across the room and slammed directly into Kyle. Fantastic, he groaned from the floor. Queen Elira finally looked back at him. For a brief second, despite the chaos, amusement flickered across the glowing rings inside her eyes. You complain often, she observed. I'm from a mining colony. Complaining is our primary cultural tradition. One of the pilots yelled suddenly. Impact in 5 seconds. Outside the window, a Dominion fighter emerged from the debris cloud directly beside them. Its surface pulsed with red energy symbols. Then the symbols moved. Kyle stared. Did the ship's skin just blink? The guard beside him whispered nervously, that is not technology. A blast struck the shuttle's side. The cabin lights exploded. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Kyle smelled smoke instantly. Oh good. Fire. Exactly what spacecraft need. The shuttle lost control. Warning alarms overlapped one another in 15 languages. Artificial gravity failed for half a second, throwing everyone upward. Kyle floated helplessly beside one of the guards. "This is deeply undignified," he announced while spinning slowly. Then gravity returned violently. Everybody crashed back down. One royal soldier groaned from beneath a cargo crate. "I believe my spine has dissolved." The shuttle pilots struggled desperately with the controls. "We cannot reach the flagship. The engines are failing. Something is inside the power systems." Kyle froze. "What do you mean inside?" The pilot enlarged the engine feed hologram. Dark organic veins crawled across the reactor core beneath the shuttle. Slowly moving. Growing. Kyle stared in horror. "Nope, absolutely no. I already hate whatever that is." The guards looked equally disturbed. One whispered a prayer under his breath. Queen Elira stepped toward the reactor display. The glowing constellations beneath her skin brightened intensely. "The Dominion brought void corruption," she said quietly. Kyle frowned. "That sounds illegal." "It should be." The organic black veins suddenly spread faster across the reactor. The engine temperature surged. The pilots panicked immediately. "Core overload. We must eject the reactor." Kyle suddenly unstrapped himself. A guard grabbed his arm instantly. "What are you doing?" "What I always do when machines become horrifying nightmares." "You cannot fix void corruption." Kyle looked toward the burning reactor display. "Probably not. But if that thing reaches the core, we're all becoming very emotional particles." Without waiting for permission, he rushed toward the maintenance hatch near the rear engine corridor. The guards shouted after him. Queen Elira did not. That was somehow more unsettling. The engine corridor beyond the hatch looked catastrophic. Smoke filled the narrow passage. Emergency lights flashed red through leaking steam. The walls themselves twitched occasionally as black veins spread through the metal like living infection. Kyle stopped walking immediately. "I would like to formally resign." The repair drone from earlier suddenly floated beside him from a storage compartment. Its eye flickered cheerfully. "I found you." Kyle blinked. "How did you even get on this shuttle?" "I was accidentally kicked into a military crate during evacuation." "Reasonable." The drone scanned the corridor. "Probability of survival has fallen to 9%. Why are you always excited about death?" "I am programmed for workplace honesty." Another explosion shook the shuttle. The reactor chamber doors began bending inward. Something massive moved behind them. Not mechanical. Not human. Kyle slowly backed away. "No. No, no, no." A distorted metallic sound echoed from inside the reactor room, almost like breathing. Then a voice emerged from the darkness. Ancient, broken, hungry, Torah. The corridor lights shattered instantly. Every system aboard the shuttle died at once. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, something opened its eyes. Darkness swallowed the engine corridor. Kyle could hear the reactor struggling somewhere ahead, pulsing like a wounded heart beneath layers of metal and corrupted machinery. Then the voice returned. "Solari." The walls trembled. Black veins spread faster across the corridor floor, crawling toward his boots like living shadows. Kyle immediately stepped backward. "I would like everyone to know I officially preferred the exploding ship situation." The repair drone floated beside him. "Fear levels detected." "Excellent observation." Ahead, two massive shapes slowly emerged through the darkness behind the reactor doors. Not creatures. Not fully. They looked like broken suits of ancient armor fused with black crystal and moving flesh, their hollow bodies glowing with deep crimson light. Fragments of distorted faces shifted beneath the surface of the corruption, as though countless trapped souls moved inside them. Kyle stared in horror. "Oh, absolutely not." One of the entities tilted its head unnaturally toward him. Then, every light aboard the shuttle suddenly reignited at once. Queen Elira stepped into the corridor behind him. The glowing constellations beneath her skin burned brighter than ever before, illuminating the walls with silver light. The corrupted creatures recoiled instantly. Kyle glanced at her. I'm beginning to understand why people listen when you enter rooms. The queen ignored the joke. Her eyes remained fixed on the creatures. They are remnants, she said quietly. Remnants of what? The war that ended the Solari. The black entities began advancing again. The corridor temperature dropped sharply. Frost spread across the metal walls. Kai's repair drone slowly floated backward. Updated survival probability unpleasant. Thank you. One creature lunged forward suddenly. Kyle reacted instinctively. He grabbed a loose plasma conduit hanging from the ceiling and slammed it into the corrupted body. The corridor exploded with blue energy. The creature screamed. Not loudly, sadly. Its entire form destabilized before collapsing into burning ash and drifting particles of black light. Everyone froze. Even the second creature hesitated. Kyle blinked at the smoking conduit in his hands. That actually worked? The queen looked genuinely surprised. The Solari energy responded to you. Kyle stared at the weapon. I was aiming randomly. Apparently, the universe approved. The second creature charged directly toward them. Before Kale could react, Queen Elira raised her hand. The glowing markings beneath her skin ignited like living stars. Silver light burst through the corridor. For one breathtaking moment, the entire shuttle fell silent. The corruption vanished instantly. Not destroyed. Purified. The creature's monstrous form dissolved into harmless drifting light before disappearing completely. Then everything became still. Kyle slowly exhaled. Well, that was deeply traumatic. The reactor alarms suddenly stopped. Across the shuttle, damaged systems began rebooting one by one. The corruption was gone. The pilots shouted from the cockpit. Engines restored. We have navigation again. Outside the ship, the royal fleet emerged from hyperspace above Vera 9. Hundreds of Astravian warships surrounded the Dominion fleet within seconds. The battle ended almost immediately. Without the corruption spreading through the systems, the Dominion forces collapsed under overwhelming firepower. By dawn cycle, the enemy fleet had retreated beyond the outer systems. The war everyone feared never truly began. Hours later, silence filled the observation chamber aboard the Australian flagship. Stars drifted peacefully beyond the massive crystal windows. Kyle stood awkwardly beside the queen, wearing borrowed royal clothing that clearly did not fit him correct. I feel like decorative furniture, he muttered. You look uncomfortable. I grew up fixing oxygen filters. Now people bow when I walk past. One man cried earlier. That was like the Lord Varex. He cries often. Kyle laughed quietly. For the first time since leaving Vera 9, the tension in his chest finally eased. He looked toward the stars. So what happens now? Queen Elira remained silent for a moment. The Senate will resist you. They already do. They will fear what you are. Kyle nodded slowly. Then he surprised himself. I'm not really afraid anymore. The queen looked at him carefully. That was true. Somewhere between the burning station, the corrupted monsters, and nearly dying inside the reactor corridor, something inside him had changed. He was still sarcastic, still reckless, still probably underqualified for literally everything happening around him, but no longer small, no longer invisible. The galaxy had spent centuries fearing forgotten bloodlines and ancient prophecies. Kyle simply saw broken systems that needed fixing, and maybe that was exactly why the queen chose him. Suddenly, the repair drone floated into the chamber carrying another bowl of synthetic noodles. I have prepared victory meal. Kyle stared at it. Where did you even find those? Royal kitchen. These are probably worth more than my entire colony. Correct. Kyle accepted the noodles carefully. Then he looked toward Queen Elira. So, just to confirm, I'm still not becoming king, right? For the first time since he met her, the queen laughed openly. The glowing constellations beneath her skin shimmered softly like living galaxies. Outside the crystal windows, the stars themselves seemed brighter now. And somewhere far beyond the edge of known space, ancient darkness finally fell silent once more.